My name's Deputy Inspector General of Police, Dr. Shehu, PSC. To talk about PRAWA, Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, we have a very, very good rapport, good understanding, and good synergy between the police and PRAWA for many years. It is an institution that concerns primarily on respect of dignity and human rights, which the police are supposed to be part of it. And also capacity building to the police to enable them to perform effectively and efficiently in conjunction with the fundamental respect to the fundamental human rights as enshrined into the Nigerian constitutions of 1999. It's very, very beneficial, and at the same time in building capacity and enabling the police officers to perform credibly when they go out to discharge their duties. The police is an organization that deals with all kinds of human beings. When they come across a police officer, they deserve to be respected by police in ensuring not only their security and safety, but also in respecting their dignity and human rights. So in a nutshell, the training and retraining we are getting from the PRAWA is to enable us have police that will function and discharge their duties in a most standard and acceptable manner by members of the public. At this juncture, I want to say kudos. Welcome to the Nigeria Police Force online training.
You're welcome to this very important class. We are still dealing with course 10, and we'll be looking at module 3 under the rights of person under detention and prevention of torture. And in this module, we'll be looking at the rights of detainees and prisoners in detention as regards to their standards of living, adequate standards of living. Now, the objective of this particular module is to provide awareness on the various rights of detainees and prisoners as contained in international, regional, domestic laws in relation to their rights to adequate standards of living. Then at the end of this training, it is expected that you would have learned, how to be able to increase your knowledge of the rights of the detainees and prisoners in relation to their rights to adequate standards of living. The deprivation of adequate food, water, clothing, and proper accommodation can often result to ill treatment of detainees and prisoners, which may amount to torture in severe cases. Now, the rights of detainees and prisoners in relation to their adequate standard of living, what we are trying to say is the people in detention, they also have rights, and they have rights to adequate standard of living. They are still human beings, they are not animals. When you go to some detention homes, when you go to some detention facilities, you realize the subhuman condition that most of those detainees are living in. And this is not supposed to be so. And this is why we are actually taking this course. Now, under this right, the first thing we are going to look at is accommodation, where people are kept for long periods of time in overcrowded conditions. There may be danger of violence of the strong taking advantage of the weak. When you go to most detention homes, you realize that people are often packed in very small rooms. You see people in a place that's supposed to contain maybe like 40 people, you see 100 people living in one room. And of course, that kind of condition will provide a situation where the weak will now take advantage, the strong will now take advantage of the weak. There also may be danger of sexual assault as well as physical abuse. When you go to detention homes, you see physical abuse, you even see sexual abuse. The strong will always take advantage of the weak because they are always packed out in very tiny spaces that cannot contain the large crowd that is often kept there. Where overcrowding exists, there will also be the danger of illness and the spread of diseases such as tuberculosis, scabies, HIV and AIDS, and of course we cannot end this without talking about COVID-19. Because of social distances, when people do social distancing, when people are packed out in a very tiny space that is not supposed to accommodate the number of people, people can get sick easily. Apart from getting sick, the spread of sicknesses will be swift and fast because there is no form of physical distancing. Accommodation for detainees and prisoners shall provide adequate cubic content of air, floor space, lighting, heating, and ventilation. I understand, of course, that this has to do with, of course, government providing these facilities. But we also need on our own to also remind government of the condition where we put our detainees into. When those conditions are not adequate, we need to complain to them that the people we have here are too many, and that's why we also advocate for non-custodial measures. It's not everybody that should be arrested and kept in detention homes when there could be non-custodial initiatives that we could actually assess to ensure that our detention facilities are adequately, are not overcrowded. All accommodation provided for the use of prisoners and detainees, in particular all sleeping accommodation, shall meet all requirements of health, due regards being paid to climatic condition and particularly to cubic air. Where people are kept in, is there adequate ventilation? Can people breathe well? This is very important. In all places where prisoners and detainees are required to live and work, the window shall be large enough to enable enough ventilation. There should be artificial light so that there will be enough illumination. People will be able to see, not keeping people in poorly lit rooms where they cannot be able to see sunlight. That is a subhuman condition to actually keep detainees. Now, another point we need to look at is safekeeping of detainees' belongings and property. When you arrest someone, when someone is under detention, whatever the person brought to the police station when you arrested him, you need to keep his properties safe. When the person is leaving, you hand him or her over his or her properties, of course, because when probably maybe somebody comes into detention and when the person is leaving, he can't find his wristwatch, he can't find his mobile phone, or he can't find his laptop, it becomes a problem. And of course, that doesn't in any way help the image of the force. And we need to run away from issues like this. Another thing is the right to adequate food and drinking water. Adequate food and drinking water are human rights that are guaranteed not just by national human rights, international human rights laws that we are signatories to. People who are in detention should be provided with adequate food and adequate drinking water. All detainees and prisoners have the right to wholesome and adequate food at the usual hours. 3 square meals per day. Not just any kind of food. Even when someone is detained, it doesn't mean the person's right has been taken away. His right to dignity of life, his right to have access to adequate food and drinking water must always be provided. Paragraph 2 talks about specifically providing that the states should recognize the fundamental right of everyone to be free from hunger. So even if you are in detention, it doesn't mean that your right to be free from hunger has been taken away from you. You should also enjoy that right. The right to adequate food is further developed by the Committee on Economic and Socio-Cultural Rights, and in its general comment, number 12 in 1999, on the subject, it provides that whenever an individual or group is unable, for reasons beyond their control, to enjoy the right to adequate food by the means of their disposal, states have the obligation to fulfill that right directly. So what it means is that whenever an individual cannot meet the obligation to feed himself, it becomes the responsibility of the state, of course, to do that. Rule 20 of the UNSMR requires that every prisoner shall be provided by the administration at the usual hours with food of nutritional value, adequate for health and strength, and of wholesome quality and well prepared and served. This kind of right is not only found in the United States or in the United Kingdom. Nigeria is also a nation that should ensure that citizens who are in detention enjoy this right. I know that when you go to most correctional facilities or most detention homes, you see the kind of food that is given to them, and you begin to wonder if the food is for a human being or if the food is for a dog. We need to ensure that the food we give to our prisoners are food that is worthy of human consumption. Now, other issues to note is that a detainee in need of help from appropriate adult. In the case of a juvenile under 17 years of age, a mentally vulnerable person, or a person with learning difficulty, an appropriate adult should be present during questioning and searching to make sure that the accused understands what is happening. Now, this point is really very important and critical, because if at the end of the day you did not follow this particular rule, it can make even someone who is guilty of an offense to be left off the hook because of issues of human rights. Now, when someone is still a child, remember the definition of a child, someone who is below 18, the person needs to have an adult that will be there to explain what is happening. In the case of someone who is vulnerable, someone who is mentally unstable, the person needs an appropriate adult. Appropriate adult now, if we are talking about maybe a lawyer or a family member, should be present during questioning and searching to make sure that the accused understands what's happening. If tomorrow the accused goes to court and he says, during searching, I didn't know what I was told, what was happening, or when I was told to write, when I was given a paper to write what happened, I was just told what to write. There was nobody there. What do you think will happen? The judge may actually acquit the person. So it is very important and critical that you take this into consideration. Okay? Going forward, an appropriate adult is a volunteer who plays an important role in the custody environment by ensuring that the detained person whom he is assisting understands what is happening to the person and why. That's the definition of an appropriate person. A volunteer who can stay with the person to explain to him, this is what is happening. Do you understand what is happening before you can go ahead? In the case of mental health assessment, the police have the power to take a detainee to a place of safety if they believe that he or she is in need of immediate care or control to ensure that his or her protection and the protection of others. What are we saying? When someone is mentally unstable, the person is a risk both to himself and to the people who are around him. So it is the responsibility of the Nigerian police to take the person to a safe place where he will not constitute a danger to himself or to people that are around him. For example, police officers should know who to contact at the local hospital or psychiatric hospital or at the welfare office in case they have such a case. So it is important to have the numbers of psychiatric hospitals, even welfare homes. When you have peculiar cases where a detained person is exhibiting signs of mental ill health, you quickly call those numbers and tell them, we have somebody here who needs mental attention. Because, of course, before the person can pay for his crimes, the person needs to be sane also, and the person needs to be healthy. Going forward, a place of safety could be a hospital. It could be a police station. A police station should only be used in exceptional circumstances, such as serious threat of violence or danger to people providing care or support. You understand? Now, you can use your police station as a safe place if you have adequate room space where you can keep someone who is a danger to himself and to others. Where this is the case, attempts should be made to explore the possibility of providing some security to enable the safe custody of such a person in a therapeutic environment such as hospital, such as psychiatric hospital. Now, when you send somebody who is mentally unstable to a psychiatric home, you don't just send the person there and you leave the person there. If you send the person there, the person runs away, what will happen? You will also answer questions. So in those cases where someone is sent to a mental home, adequate preparation and adequate plans should be made to ensure that there is security that will ensure that the person under detention doesn't escape. Taking someone to a place of safety will allow that person to be assessed by a medical doctor and interviewed by an approved mental health professional. Now, the maximum time someone should be detained at a place of safety is 72 hours. That's 3 days, according to the Mental Health Act applicable in the United Kingdom. By then, any necessary arrangement for the person's treatment and care should have been made. The Lunacy Law of most states provides the period of time by which a medical review of such a detainee should be effected and presented. What we are trying to say is that when you take somebody to a safe home, say a psychiatric home, okay, it's a temporary measure in order to ensure that the person is, first of all, stable before you will now assess what next to do. And it's, of course, the maximum time that is normally given is 72 hours, which is 3 days. I hope we've enjoyed this class. I will always encourage us to go through our slides and through our manual for a better understanding, because this is what we are going to be using to work every day on the field. So it's always important that you stay abreast and aware of some of these rights. Thank you very much.